Hey everybody, it's Perch. Kind of a different video here today. So I want to talk about storytellers, and I want to talk about, look, let me say on the offset, I may not land what I want to say here. This is kind of it's an odd topic, and it just may not hit where it needs to hit, and that's fine. We're gonna try it anyway. So today, this is kind of a weird thing to talk about, and this is becoming a really rough year and maybe it's the age, but uh, Billy Rotunda or William Rotunda, who many of you probably know as the professional wrestler Bray Wyatt. So if you followed the WWE, he was he's a generational wrestler. He was a very different character that came out. So Bray Wyatt kind of made a name for himself as being a very different, unusual character in the World Wrestling Federation. He had a first start that was I would say not terribly exciting or didn't pick up in NXT during their kind of when they were kind of playing with that prior to the NXT as you may know it today if you're a wrestling fan. But then he made it to the main roster first as kind of as Bray Wyatt, but then it changed where he had a stable and he had a very kind of different, creepy kind of persona. The last wrestler that really had this kind of mythology around him was The Undertaker. And again, whether or not you're a fan of wrestling or anything else, you have to respect the hustle of somebody who is able to come in and do something very, very different. So Bray Wyatt did that. He was a bigger than life kind of character, and it was he did an incredible job. He was larger than life. Unfortunately, Bray Wyatt passed away, and this chances are you know this. I'm assuming you know this. So he died at age 36. He was battling kind of serious health issues. You know, it was kind of if you follow. I mean, it's hard for me to know. So I should say at this point, I knew William. I would say he was not a. I mean, there's different levels of friends, but he was somebody I corresponded with regularly on, in text and in phone calls. He was one of the people that I talked to. He's a good guy. And when I say good guy, what I mean by that is I don't know personally in his personal life what he was up to. I mean, he was inventive. He was creative. And it's kind of the purpose of this video. He was somebody who had a lot of um, kind of unusual ideas that he could make marketable. We talk about commercial ideas. He had an interesting kind of unusual sense about what was going to work and what wasn't. And he did pretty incredible things. And it's hard to say that when you're talking about somebody who would then get kind of dressed up and go out to a wrestling ring and do performance wrestling. And if you don't have a like or respect for wrestling, this probably all sounds fairly absurd. But take it from me, he was somebody who had a different view of how things should kind of come across. He was a storyteller. And I guarantee you, of all the kind of eulogies and other things you will see, I'm pretty sure you won't see many people. I hope I'm wrong about this, by the way, but you won't hear many people talk about how he was a storyteller. He was somebody, because I know because we talked about it, he was somebody who would think about how he would come to the ring. He would think about the movements he should make. He would think about how the lighting should kind of hit him. He would think about kind of how he should, what the persona should be, how he should come across. And, wrestling, you can call it a sport. It's not. It's a performance art. I'm sorry, spoilers. But he really understood that. He understood the performance art of the business. He understood how he should kind of come, his persona should be perceived and how it should come across. And he was thoughtful. So again, as you hear about kind of, if you're into wrestling, you'll hear probably a lot of blogs and those things about this. You'll hear about how he was thoughtful. Sorry, you won't hear about how he was thoughtful. You hear about how he was a performance, how he was unusual, how he would do different things. You probably won't hear about how he conveyed an idea in everything he did, in his mannerisms, in his act, in his speech. I mean, he thought about how he would talk. He was very thoughtful, and I'm going to miss him. I would say, I don't say this casually about a lot of people. I would say he was a friend. I'm going to miss that guy a lot because we all have things in our life where we we know people. There's people who are special to us because they unlock different things. William unlocked different things for me. He would have ideas that I would think about in the middle of the night differently around how kind of certain stories could be told, about how certain things could happen. You learn over time not to take it casually. And with business, I mean, this is a comic book channel, so for a lot of us, and I'm hoping I'm doing a very poor job of this, but this is kind of a from the heart kind of emotion. And for fuck's sake, I mean, this has been a shitty year. I've lost a lot of people really close to me, and that's it's starting to add up. I mean, bluntly, it's hard. Um, you know, it's important to me on some level for people to understand that this guy who is easily disregarded as a wrestling performer had a lot more than that. He had a lot more in his life that he offered. He was thoughtful. That's the best way to put it. He was extremely thoughtful about what he did, about how he performed, about what he brought. And, in the world of comics, it matters a great deal about how these stories touch us, about what we remember. I mean, look, we can all complain about, what dumb shit Marvel is doing, or whether this was the greatest story of all time, or why, what's Jim Lee up to, or all the various things that get talked about on comic channels. But at the end of the day, for all of us, what I hope to, and what I suspect a lot of you do too, is that 20 years from now, God willing, we're still alive, 20 years from now, we remember these images and these ideas. That's the power of comics. And as silly as it sounds, that's sometimes the power of wrestling. I'm not a fan of wrestling like I am a fan of comics by any stretch of the imagination. Wrestling is not a deep love of mine. But still, even the limited amount that I would see, I have memories. I have memories of, both the good things and the dumb things. I have memories of, The Undertaker, and his act and how that first came across. I have memories, and this is definitely something that you have to be a hardcore wrestling fan. I have memories of the first time Chris Benoit won the heavyweight championship, and that was like, it felt powerful for him. Unfortunately, he had a very, very disturbed life afterward, which all of like 2% of you know. But I mean, there's these memories that exist. And in comics, I have not a million, unfortunately. I have hundreds of memories of the first time I read the issue where the Legion of Superheroes jumped 5 years in the future. I have memories of, what Superman's death was like and how it was in comics. I have memories of when the X-Men went through the Siege Perilous and how that changed kind of that entire, the entire, direction of that comic. I have memories. A lot of us do. And so I guess what I'd like to say, tonight is that William, or Bray Wyatt, to as how he's commonly known, he deserves to be remembered as a storyteller, as somebody who thought about these moments and legitimate. And I'm telling you from personal experience, from from very personal experience. Here's a guy who would write messages saying, I hope I can make this moment count. I'm going to try to tilt my head up to get the light so that it invokes a memory. That was who this guy was. And I'm going to miss you a lot. Thanks for listening.